Welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. My name is David Beeson. I am your host for today's conversation. And my guest today is Casey Wright, owner of Chief of Staff. We're going to be talking about his business journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek of what it's really like to build and operate a business. Casey, welcome to the show and thank you for being here today. I would love for you to give us a little bit of background of who you are and just tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, David. Yeah, my name's Casey Wright. Like you said, I'm owner of a recruiting firm here in Kansas City called Chief of Staff. We've been in business since 2011. I took over in June of 2019. I've been in the industry for about 19 years. I personally have always focused on placing people in finance and accounting roles, so anywhere from a CFO to entry-level accounting clerk and everything in between. We've got 7 different divisions here, so we place people in finance, administrative, sales, operations, marketing, HR, IT, and then we have an HR consulting business as well. So we're focused on Kansas City primarily. We closed deals with about 250 different companies last year, anywhere from your multi-billion-dollar publicly traded international companies to pre-revenue tech startups and everything in between, nonprofits, you name it. So passionate about the recruiting business, love making connections that matter. We focus on the cultural fit above everything else, and we've been growing. We've got a big presence here in Kansas City, and looking to continue that.
That's awesome. Generally speaking, what does your current ownership structure look like? Are you the sole founder? Do you have a partner or there are outside investors?
No, there's somebody else founded it, had the opportunity to take over the majority ownership. Like I said, back in 2019. So I've got a great leadership team surrounding me, but I'm running the day to day here and majority owner at this point. Didn't take on any outside capital when I took over. I be totally honest with you, I didn't grow up in a world where I ever thought I'd be a business owner. Didn't grow up, in a family where we had a bunch of excess cash or whatever. But I fell into this industry, shortly after graduating college. Realized I loved what I did. Quite frankly, I wasn't really passionate about the industry, but I did really well with it and saved up a lot of cash. Wasn't sure what I was going to do next. Left my old firm in 2018. Took a year off. Did a year long road trip with my wife and 2 little kids, and
Oh, that's
went
awesome.
to 38 states and 5 Canadian provinces in that year off. Sat out a non compete and thought I was most likely going to start a firm from scratch when I got back, but instead had the opportunity to buy this one, which allowed me to plug and play. Obviously continuity of being in business for several years certainly helped. As most people know, new startup businesses, the vast majority of them fail. I know what I'm best at, and that's this industry. So I didn't want to deal with a lot of the headache of the startup stuff. Was able to buy this with my own cash. Like I said, didn't take on any outside investors. Had a lot that were trying to invest with us, but I personally thought I had a better way of doing this. I didn't want to have somebody else to report up to. So when I bought it, we had about 4 employees. We got 22 now, and looking to continue to grow.
That's awesome. Yeah. And tell us a little bit about what role you currently play in the business. Like, what's your day to day look like?
Well, like I said, I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, and I've never had 2 days that are similar. Every single day is different. I consider myself a player coach. I'm still producing. I love it. I'm passionate about it. I've always found it hard to get people to buy in on what you're selling, what you're trying to train them, unless you show them yourself. So I still am placing people in finance and accounting roles. I've got a whole team surrounding me that does that too. But I'm dealing with the internal issues too. We focus most on the culture, like I said, above all else. And so we figure, how are we supposed to get our clients to trust us and rely to help them build a better culture if we don't have the best culture ourselves? So start internally. I've worked a number of places. I feel like we have the best team in the whole business. I have no doubt about that. And so we've really focused on building the right culture. I mean, truthfully, we've had no unwanted turnover in the entire time I've been here. We've been fortunate. We've won a bunch of local awards and regional too, but we've won best places to work in several different publications in Kansas City.
Oh,
We've
that's awesome.
won number one staffing firm in a bunch of different publications, coolest office, healthiest employer, fastest growing, all sorts of different things. So we've really focused with ourselves, and then I think our clients and candidates and friends of the firm see that and respect it, and they're like, yeah, we want a culture more or like that too. Why don't we partner with these guys? So every day I'm looking to hire new people. I'm doing the business development. I'm out there networking every single day. I mean, coffee, lunch, dinner, happy hour, you name it, some combination every day. We don't want to be the types that are just showing up when you have a need, but cultivating long-term relationships too. early on in my career, the only thing that mattered and was emphasized was butts and seats in our industry. And I found that to be way too transactional. It's like, did you play somebody? Did they stay long enough for us to collect a commission check? Move on. Wipe your hands clean of it. And it turned me off. When I tell my team, and I try and operate this way too. It's like when I meet somebody, don't go into it with who are they going to hire for me or where am I going to place them right now, but what value add can we be from day one? And sometimes that's directly related to a job search or a hiring process, and sometimes it's totally something different. Sometimes I've got a candidate that's relocating to town and they don't know the Kansas City market very well. I'm going to tell them about different school districts, different neighborhoods, introduce them to real estate agents, whatever it is, like be a value add. And I'm a firm believer in what goes around comes around. So I look at it as like, what can I help them with right now? But realistically, what's my relationship look like 2, 3, 4 years from now? And so constantly cultivating relationships and showing that we actually care about people versus, treat them like a commodity, which unfortunately I think is all too common in our industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally. So this is one of my favorite questions to ask. It's a bit of a fun one. I'm curious, based on your experience, if I were to give you an extra 10 hours back each week, how would you invest those hours? Could be in the business, could be personally. I know if I answer this question, I didn't say spending time with my wife. She might kill me, but oh, did I lose you?
Yeah. Why forget it? I still got you. Do you hear me?
Oh, there you go. I see you now. Yep. Sorry about that.
Sorry. No, I said obviously spending more time with family is always key. If you could give me a price tag on that, I joke around all the time. I
Yeah.
was like, people are like, what do you need? I was like, you got a clone machine because there's not enough time, hours in the day, hours in the week, whatever. Um, I think you got self betterment. It's sleep. I need more sleep, so that's part of it. But like I said, every single day is different for me, so it's hard to know. Sometimes, we've got a bunch of hot job searches, and I'm spending all day trying to recruit new candidates. Sometimes we're doing the early stage, meeting with a company that's getting ready for a big growth trajectory, and we're putting in the groundwork. Sometimes it's dealing with whatever fire comes up. My wife each morning before I go to work, she's like, what are you doing today?" I'm like, "I'm a full-time firefighter." You never know what's going to happen. So it's hard to say 10 more hours in a week. Obviously, more time with family is always key, but you got to take care of yourself too. I need to work out more. Something I used to be real dedicated to, and right now it's hard to find time to do that. But between growing the business, developing more relationships and taking care of the family, it's a challenge. So I do a good job of when I checking out for real. I think sometimes people will travel with family, you look up and they're on their phone or on their laptop the entire time. Like when I am off, I make a point of being very engaged with the family. So that'd be high on the list. But um, doing more and more to service clients, brand recognition. There's a million different things that I could do with 10 extra hours in a week, honestly.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, how much time do you put into the business and how much time do you put like sorry, how many hours do you spend working in your business and how many on the business?
I wish I had an answer for that. I mean, it's all intertwined. Um, a lot of my networking might start off as, "Hey, I'm trying to do business development. I'm trying to see if this person's hiring. Let's go to lunch. Let's go to coffee or a happy hour." And next thing you know, I start talking to them, and it's another business owner, it's an entrepreneur, and then I'm a sponge, and I'm listening to them, and what I think a meeting's going to be pivots in the middle of it. So I'm trying to better myself, and I think it's very important to know that you don't know what you don't know. And so I go into every meeting. Sometimes it's interviewing somebody that just graduated college and they're brand new to their career, and I'm talking about hiring them. And next thing you know, they're giving me suggestions, and I'm listening to everyone. And like, I want to gather as much information. Knowledge is power. And so every one of my meetings I look at is multifaceted, and so it's in and on the business, like if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely does. So, I'm curious, just like with you being owning the business since 2019, I know you've probably gone through a lot. So, as you look back on your journey, what has been the most memorable roadblock or hurdle you were challenged with as a business owner that you were forced to overcome?
I mean, early obvious one when I took over the company, that we had 8 months left on our lease,
Mm,
and yeah, it was a small office at the time. It was a cool office, but it was small, and we were growing, and we knew we were going to grow. So ended up finding a space. We did a nice, cool build out, tripled our square footage, signed a 5-year lease, thinking we're going to be good for a while. 2 weeks after we moved in, after we did this big build out, a little thing called the pandemic hit, and there's a global lockdown.
Uh,
So we spent all this money building out this office, and we're in it for the long run to win it. And then all of a sudden, we can't even go into the office. So I've got people different stages of their career. Some are brand new to our industry. Some are brand new to the workforce. And people are navigating like, well, what the heck do we do? And obviously, you can work. There's all sorts of scenarios that are beneficial for people working remote that didn't used to really be as feasible as they are nowadays. But I still think when you're sitting in the office and you've got the energy of the office, you hear people around you, you learn from listening to those that have done it before you, and that was hard to navigate. First couple of months of pandemic, we had no revenue, and I come home, my wife's like, so is this why people don't buy companies? I'm like, well, we'll see. We're but by the end of 2020, it was the best year we'd ever had, and we continue to grow from there. So now, once we moved back in that office, we only had 4 years left on the lease. Like I said, we tripled our square footage. We thought we'd be good. Well, we grew so much that we outgrew that within the next 2 years. So we just quadrupled our square footage last year. So tripled it my first less than a year in, and then quadrupled it less than 5 years in. Good problems to have, but definitely weren't things I was necessarily anticipating from when I first took over.
yeah, sounds like really good growth though overall.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. We got a cool office. We want to make it a welcoming environment, not just for the employees, but for clients, for candidates, for friends of the firm, and whoever else, honestly.
Awesome. Well, so I'm curious, who primarily does your business serve? Like if I were in the audience listening to this right now, how would I know if I was a good fit for your product or service?
Sure. Well, like I mentioned earlier, we've got 7 different divisions, and I've always learned riches are in the niches. So we try and stay as specialized within our divisions as possible. I'll get a call once a day. Hey, I need to hire a new sales director. Like, what's that going to cost me? And I'm like, well, I don't know. And like, what do you mean? Don't you guys do that? I said, we do, but I empower my teams to run run it like an entrepreneur. And so just like I wouldn't want them, my sales division quoting on what a CFO or controller or director of tax or finance is going to cost. I'm not trying to go out there and quote what all our other divisions are specializing in. I don't. I think there's a lot of people that are, jack of all trades, a master of none, and we try and be as deliberate about our focus as possible. So within all those areas, that's our specialty, but we're industry agnostic. Like I said, we had 250 different clients in the Kansas City area last year that we closed deals with, all across the board: construction, manufacturing, legal, professional services, tech, nonprofit, you name it. And all different areas of roles too, or all different levels of roles too. Like I said, from entry level to C-suite and everything in between. Not that we don't have capabilities outside of Kansas City, but we really brand ourselves Kansas City's firm. There's over 10,000 companies in Kansas City, even though I think 250 is a pretty good market share compared to what I've seen in the past, other companies I've worked for. That means there's still over 9,000 companies left that we're not doing business with. So a lot of people ask me all the time, like, when are you going to branch out and open a new office, a new location? And I found that our industry differs drastically market to market. And I don't claim to be the best, expert on the New York City market or the LA market, or the Houston, the Austin, Chicago. There's great firms in all of those markets. We're Kansas City's though. We know Kansas City like the back of our hand. So we partner with different firms across the nation and even different disciplines. I had a client reach out to me a few years ago that needed to hire a new general counsel, and I joked around. I said, "Hey, I avoid attorneys like the plague. I try not to deal with attorneys too much. That's not necessarily a good thing always, but they told me that, hey, we're the only ones they trust. We've got a contract with them. We're the only ones that are an approved vendor." And so, you know what? Even though I don't know attorneys, I know a guy that specializes in placing attorneys. So let me reach out to him, and partnered with him and helped him out. So we don't ever take the approach of, no, we don't do that. Thanks, click. We're going to try and help one way or another, even if we're not the ones that are directly recruiting. We've got another firm here in town that specializes in hospitality, and one of my clients as a CFO recently bought a restaurant and needed a new chef. She's like, everybody in town. Do you know any? I'm like, yeah, I know chefs, but I'm not going to pretend to go out there and be your best resource for recruiting a chef. But I've got friends that run a firm that specializes in hospitality, so I'm going to hand the ball off and let them run sometimes. So we can serve all sorts of different people in all sorts of different industries, but we try not to step outside our lane too much though either.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm going to kind of pivot the conversation into marketing. So I'm curious, what percentage of your monthly sales typically is invested back into your marketing budget?
That's a hard question. I think we do a really good job of marketing here. There's grassroots marketing, there's organic, there's internal, there's external. Sometimes we'll spend a whole lot for a 2 or 3 month stretch on a big marketing campaign, and we'll spend to utilize external resources. We've recently redone a website and that, and then it's smooth sailing for a while, and we don't need to reach out those external side. I don't want to give you an exact answer on that. I mean, quite frankly, our marketing manager started here at our company in a different role. We found out she was phenomenal at managing the social media and just marketing in general. And if you look at her resume, that's not what she went to school for or what her historically she's done. But I'm always a believer in hiring the best athlete, and I'd rather have the best people around me versus just trying to plug a hole. Just like
Completely
I
agree.
encourage my clients, they hire for attitude, aptitude, and cultural fit because those aren't things that can really be trained. I think too many people get so focused on the exact technical skill set that they end up, not really taking enough consideration into some of those intangibles that aren't trainable. So when it comes to our marketing manager, like that wasn't her compensation wasn't what we had budgeted for marketing that year, but it's paid dividends too. And so, I tell people all the time, I think we're big enough that we can service anybody. We're small enough that we can be adaptable and pivot when necessary. I think that was one of the concerns I had with places I worked in the past is I had the mentality of, well, that's how we've done in the past. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's been done like this the past 10, 20, 30 years. So let's keep doing it that way. I'm like, learn from the past and utilize the resources and the approaches that have worked. But when it's time to pivot, pivot. Like I joke around all the time. When I first came here, everyone's like, "Are you on TikTok?" I'm like, "No, I'm too old. They make fun. I'm a boomer now, which isn't true. But I don't use TikTok, but it's something we've leaned into for certain areas. Now, we're not finding our CFO candidates from TikTok, but there's other areas that we're doing great with that. So we're constantly pivoting and trying to adapt and adjust with the times as much as possible. And so it's hard to say, month to month, week to week, year to year, whatever. It's we invest a lot into it, but it's multifaceted.
Gotcha, gotcha. How would you describe your leadership style in business? How has it changed over the years, maybe? I know you mentioned like a coaching style almost
Yeah.
earlier.
Like I said, player coach as much as possible. I'm like, yeah, I remember having a trainer in this industry early in my career, and he talked about all the money you can make in doing this if you take these approaches, and it didn't resonate with anybody. No one on my team really took it seriously, and I know the general consensus was like, well, if it's that easy to make X amount of money, and if you just had to take this approach, why isn't he still doing it? That was kind of our thought because we essentially knew what the guy was making. And he's telling us we can make X, Y, Z if we just do this and this and this. I'm like, yeah, it's sometimes easier said than done. And so to me, like I coach, I lead by training. Like I'm not a micromanager. I'm not a clock watcher. We look at making sure people are doing the right things, but it's not a you got to be in your seat from this second to this second, or will this approach work? Everyone's got a different style. Some people are more effective with written communication. Some are better in person. Some are better in a big public setting where they're presenting to a large group. Some are better in one on one. So I'm not going to sit there and tell anyone, oh, this is the only way that works, or this is the only background that's going to be successful in this industry. We're people, yeah, we're dealing with people. Like no two are the same. I might have a group of clients that absolutely love my approach and my style, but some might not like me. Well, I know some don't like me, and that's fine. But they may love the approach of one of my colleagues, and so we'll switch it up. So I try and not I try not to take this approach of absolutes and ultimatums. It's like, hey, this is what we've seen that's worked. Try this, but if not, let's get creative and pivot when necessary. And so I try and lead by example as much as possible.
Gotcha. And I know that you said that you have 22 employees. Are y'all developing any other leaders inside the company?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just got out of our weekly management meeting right before this, and that's a hot topic every single day. Is like who's positioned to move into this? Where's going to be our biggest need? what resources do we need to provide for them to help elevate them? Like, is there anything that we need to coach them up on to improve them? And yeah, absolutely. We also look at it as, yeah, we've got our leadership team, we've got, the executive team, et cetera, but everybody here is a leader. Like, in one way or another. That doesn't mean you have to have a team of 5 or 10 or 20 people reporting up to you to be a leader. It's kind of like a team captain when you're playing sports. Like, we would look for leadership qualities in everybody, and the best rises, obviously.
Gotcha. What areas of training do you believe your people will need maybe most in the next 6 months based on the current business climate and where your business is heading?
It- yeah, I mean, obviously, you always have to adapt with the times. It's when I first got in this business, some of the men and women that have been around a lot longer than I had would tell the stories of before the internet existed, and they'd interview somebody, and then they get out a stamp and an envelope, and they'd print off a resume and then fold it up, and they'd snail mail it to their client, or once technology got really advanced, it was we're going to use a fax machine. Obviously, all that's different. When I first got in this business, it was unheard of to text your candidates or your clients. Like, that was completely unprofessional. That's back when people were still paying per text. Now I'm texting people all the time. And so I'd say it's not one specific area of what they need to be trained on. It's being aware of the constant changes. I mean, obviously AI is a hot button. Everyone talks about AI right now. Um, I describe myself as somebody that very much recognizes and appreciates the value of new technologies and advancement in technologies. But I get ribbed by my colleagues and my wife and some others on not myself being the most technologically advanced. And so I try, I utilize as many resources as possible. But, I guess the main thing when I'm telling people to what to focus on in terms of self betterment, and training is stay current, and even better, look towards the future of what's going to happen.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, real quick, we're going to move into some rapid fire questions. First one is, what is the key to success for you?
Key to success is um, always looking to help people however we can. It's empathy. I joke around in our industry a lot of times. You get people that treat this job just like any other sales job, but we're not selling widgets. We're not selling a car or this or that. We're dealing with people, and so you have to have a healthy dose of empathy, and really trying to understand people and put yourself in their shoes. Like, we're dealing with people's livelihoods. I joke around all the time that your house, your spouse, and your career are probably the three biggest decisions you're ever going to make in your life, and that's something that we have a big impact on. It's not something to take for granted, but a car doesn't have to agree to be sold. A copy machine doesn't have to agree to be sold. A technology package doesn't have to agree to be sold. It's really easy when we're matching people to get one side or the other very excited about the opportunity. The candidate might really want the job, but the company's not sold on them, or vice versa. Company wants to hire the person, but they're not sold on the company. So we have to really try and put ourselves in those people's shoes, and both sides, to see how the fit's going to come together. So you got to go into it with this ability to really read people. I mean, my background is psychology, so I think that
Uh,
helps me tremendously when I'm meeting with people every single day. And I've realized, I was having a conversation actually just yesterday about this, that people aren't really great at self assessment a lot of times. You ask, well, you're an introvert and an extrovert. Someone's like, oh, I'm extroverted. Like, not so much. Or, hey, I think I really want this. Do you really want that? Or is that just because that's what you've heard you should do next in your career? And that's the path that you've seen, you know, former colleagues take. Well, why do you want that? And it's always the why that's more important than what they say. And then that really allows you to dive in. It's sometimes they'll say, well, how far are you willing to commute? Well, I don't want to drive more than 20 minutes. Okay, well, why? Sometimes it's like, well, gas prices are really high, and more than that, it's going to cost me a lot. I got to fill up my car and wear and tear on the car. I'm like, okay, so it's because you don't want to spend more on cars. Well, what if we got you $20,000 more than you were looking for? That's going to more than make up. Oh, okay, yeah, then I will drive further. All right, well, that's the why. It's not the what. Sometimes it's, well, I don't want to drive more than 20 minutes. Well, why? Because I want to spend more time with my family. I don't want to be on the road. And all right, so what if I find you a job that's 10 minutes from your house, but you're working 50 or 55 hours a week, or something that's 25 minutes from your house that you're working 35 hours a week? Oh, okay, well, that would work. And so it's really taking it to that next step and diving into to the why of things versus just what, because a lot of times people will just say something because it's a canned response that they've heard before and they think that's what they're supposed to say. And we really got to analyze them and understand where they're coming from.
Oh yeah, it's really interesting. It's an interesting approach to it.
Yeah.
Um, what is your one piece of advice for other business owners?
Value your people. Take care of your people. It's by far and away your most valuable resource. You can spend millions and millions of dollars on marketing and branding and technology packages and you name it, sales trainings, et cetera. But if you don't have the right people, it's going to crumble eventually. So take care of your people, listen to your people, and I've always loved the mindset of treating the receptionist like the CEO, and some people are really good at that, and some aren't. And I've seen it many times. Anytime I'm at a business dinner or lunch or whatever, one of my favorite things to do is look around the table and four or five, 10 people, whatever it is, and I can usually spot on pick who has worked in hospitality before just because of the way they interact with the wait staff. And I think it's a great foundation. I think teenagers, young adults, or whatever. I think it's a great way to learn how to interact with people and taking care of folks. And so it's really just this approach of the golden rule of treating others like you want to be treated, and not not just paying more attention to who you deem to be the most powerful one, the decision maker, the C-suite. It's sometimes the gatekeeper is the one that matters the most, and that might be the person greeting you when you walk in the door, or whatever that is. So um, make sure you take care of your people and treat all the others the way you want to be treated too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Um, what is a book or podcast you're reading or listening to right now?
uh, Good question. So we do a quarterly book club in our office, which is
Oh,
always really
it's fun.
fun. And so we'll read, a few chapters, and then in our Monday morning all company meeting, we'll, just like a normal book club, talk about it. What are our takeaways? So, current one it's right here. It's called The High Speed Company by Jason Jennings, and yeah, it's been very insightful so far. So, I'm a big note taker, so I like. So I'm taking notes in the off on the sides of the book. Would rather do a book on tape or listen to it. Sometimes I'll read through a hard copy, take whatever it is, and then walking the dog at night, and so I can take it in multiple ways.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
always
always
love
love
to
to.
ask that question. I always love to ask
I
that
always
question
love
so
to
that
ask
way I
that
can
question
write it
so I
down
can
and then
write
maybe
it.
check it out.
Yeah, we actually it was a year or two ago. We were doing what our book club, and our marketing manager posted something on social media and tagged the author. The author was out of New York City, and he responds right away. He's like, "Oh, I'm so honored that you chose my book and whatever." And he's like, "Can I join your guys' next meeting?" So the author, who's from New York, who we just happened to be reading his book, zoomed in
Oh,
and
wow.
participated in the meeting. It was really cool, actually. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
All right. Last rapid fire question. It's kind of a fun one. If you had a little bit of magic dust and you could choose one spot in your business to sprinkle it, where would it be and why?
Ooh, a little bit of magic dust. Um, I would say encouraging optimism, with everybody. I think, you know, people always talk about looking at the glass half full, and this thing went wrong. Oh, was the sky falling? Whether it's my candidates that are the runner up on three jobs in a row, and they start beating themselves up over it, or our team, they lost a deal that they thought they were going to get, and it's all doom and gloom. Optimism, I was taught early on in this career, like, don't let the highs be too high and the lows be too low. You gotta plug, and sometimes that means it's third and long. You got to punt. And if you got to punt, know when to punt. But that doesn't mean that's the end. That means let's refocus. And so just eternal optimism, knowing things are gonna get better. I mean, a lot of people beginning of the pandemic, they're like, oh my gosh, we're never gonna work again. Like, roll up in a ball and hide away in a cave and do nothing. I'm like, no, we might not be closing deals, but we're putting in the effort, we're putting in the groundwork to develop these relationships. Like, know that times will get better. I was in this industry during the 07, 08, 09 recession or whatever that time frame was. And it was scary. But if you kept the right habits going and you created even better habits, you did really well on the back end. And so I think that I took that approach going into the pandemic, and that's when our business really skyrocketed.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well,
Yeah.
before we get into the last question of the day, share with our audience how they can follow you, learn more, and contact you guys.
Sure. And I guess we can share links. I mean, like I said, my name's Casey Wright, CASEY WRIGHT, and you can go to my LinkedIn page. I think I'm pretty easy to find. Casey Wright, Chief of Staff. Email CWright, CWRIGHT at COS-KC.com. And you can look us up on, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the socials. So we're pretty findable.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we've come to the final question of the day, and that is, what is most inspiring to you today?
What is most inspiring to me? Seeing some of my younger people that are newer to their careers that are hitting their stride quickly. It's so fun. It's like it feels like just yesterday I was the new guy. I was the green one and the youngest on the team, and trying to figure out what my future looks like. And here we are, almost 2 decades later. It's like, wow, this no one gets into recruiting. Like, no one goes to college planning on being a recruiter. It's something we all fall into, and I'm seeing a lot of my younger people that are hitting their stride way earlier than I've ever seen, in this industry, and it's fun. It's exciting. Handful of years ago, every one of our employees either bought their first house, upgraded to a second house, or bought a second vacation/rental property in 1 year, and like
Wow.
that was exciting. There a couple of years ago, vast majority of our company got their passports for the first time because they all hit big sales incentive trips. Like, that kind of stuff gets me excited because I remember not too long ago I was in those shoes, and so it's fun celebrating successes and being surrounded by winners. And I want to be on a winning team. Always have been. Have an athlete mentality, and it's a heck of a lot more fun when everyone's doing well. When there's just one or two, on top, lonely island for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm happy to hear your team's doing super well. Well, this was a
Thank
great
you.
conversation. I really enjoyed getting to hear your story. Thank you so much for sharing. Also, I just
Yes, sir.
encourage all of you watching to save the show and come back and watch it again, because Casey really did have some great insights for business. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so that way you get notifications every time a new conversation drops, just like this one. Thanks to everyone who joined us today, and a special thanks to you, Casey, for being with us today. We
Thanks, David.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
Yep. Thank you. And I'll catch y'all in the next episode.